Welcome to Daniel's Inferno. My name is Daniel. Thank you very much for joining me. Happy Canada Day. If you have a moment, please like, subscribe, share, join the conversation below, and I'd love to hear from you. So, as I said already, happy Canada Day to all the Canadians that are watching, all Canadians out there, both in Canada and abroad. Canada Day is a wonderful day to be a Canadian. Celebrate the good that we've done, the good that we can do, and the good as a nation to recognize how far we've come from where we started. It's a wonderful day to really celebrate the nation we live in my opinion. My family has always, you know, been very proud to be Canadian, and I don't think there's a reason to be ashamed of that. As you see on my screen, however, there are Cancel Canada Day marches protesting Indigenous and Dutch injustice planned in multiple cities. Now, let me just say that many of these protests are historically based on the residential school program under John A. Macdonald and our second Prime Minister. Um, Now, if you don't know about the residential schools, it was really a horrific experience for a lot of the Indigenous communities. A lot of Indigenous people were subjected to horrific conditions, a lot of terrible injustices. Uh, the Canadian governments over the years have attempted to reconcile that history through financial payouts. One in particular I'm thinking of, it was, I think, like a $4.8 billion suit, um, and it ended up going to the Indigenous tribes. Now, obviously, money is only going to do so much. It's the same way that people argue, if someone is put away in jail for 10 years and then they get some sort of financial payout, does that really make up for that 10 years? Now, obviously, there's an argument to be made that it's done some good, but that's a different conversation. So I just want to talk about quickly some of these protests going on, why they're happening, you know, and it will give you a bit of a perspective on what the historical and contemporary, I don't want to ignore contemporary issues that Indigenous communities face. I'm not here to act like Canada has always done the right thing or even often done the right thing when it comes to the Indigenous communities. It's a very complex issue in my mind. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of financial mishandling. Uh, Mostly the Canadian government, but both sides do have things that could be worked on so that some sort of mutual and beneficial agreement could be made. So, Indigenous activists across the country will mark a day of mourning during peaceful, quote, Cancel Canada Day marches aimed at shedding light on injustices experienced in their community. So, it's led by the Indigenous right groups Idle No More. It will honor Indigenous, Black, migrant women, and trans lives lost. We will not celebrate the ongoing genocide within Canada against Indigenous peoples. All right, you really don't understand what a genocide is at all. I'm sorry to say that. Canada is not genociding the Indigenous communities. You cannot make an argument for that, and it actually belittles those people who have experienced genocide. You're demeaning the word by using it so flippantly. That's wrong. We will use our voices for, oh geez, MMIWG2S, child welfare, birth alerts, forced sterilization, police and RCMP brutality, and all of the injustices we faced. So Vancouver, Saskatoon, Halifax, and Hamilton, and there's a live broadcast by them. Um, Many say celebrations, including Canada Day, Victoria Day, and St. John Baptist Day, are symbols of colonialism. We have many names for our social or our sacred lands, and Canada is not one of them. All right, but it's the one we use, and we're not going to just rip down all of contemporary society with the 35 million people inside of it for a 1% that has had injustices. I'm not saying we shouldn't make up for those injustices. I'm not saying we shouldn't continue to grow as a people, that we shouldn't always be self-reflective and trying to see what we can do better, how we can improve ourselves. And through that self-improvement, I think the world slowly becomes a better place if we all just self-improve. And I think the same can be said about how the Canadian government deals with Indigenous communities. I'm not arguing that at all. But to use terms like genocide or that this isn't, we don't call this land Canada, too bad. Get over it or get stuffed. As my grandmother would say, fly a kite. We don't celebrate Canada Day for the same reason we don't celebrate the Holocaust. Wow. Wow. These people are quickly losing my support. Very quickly. Look at all we lost for Canada to become what it is. There is a huge divide that must be closed, and we can only close that divide by working together and have kindness and love and respect for each other as human beings. I agree with that statement, but to say we don't celebrate Canada Day for the same reason we don't celebrate the Holocaust is probably the most dim-witted and stupidest thing I've heard only in the last week, I think, because there's been a lot of stupid things being said in the last 6 months. But that's that's got to top the cake for this week. Dumbest quote, idle no more. We don't celebrate Canada Day for the same reason we don't celebrate the Holocaust. Very offensive to the Jewish community, very offensive to every community that was subjugated and had to deal with the Holocaust in actual terms. And just to try to vitiate Canada and make it some sort of devil in the corner, which seems to be a prevailing narrative by a lot of these activists that we need to paint. We got to paint it as the devil, as the Hitler of what's going on. And that's not Canada. I'm sorry. Canada has done a lot of good. We have tried very hard to have peacekeeping missions across the years. Canada's involvement in trying to help the Rwandan tragedy is legendary. There was a great documentary on a Canadian peacekeeper that was there that I watched. I don't know the name of it. I'll try to find it and put it in the description in a couple, in the next couple of days. It was fantastic. It really was informing and just to see the things that the Canadian peacekeepers went through um, and how they really attempted, those that were there at least, and the Canadian government at the time, really tried to send aid and support to a level that other nations at the time were unwilling to offer. So we've come through a lot of hardships, there's no question. We've come through the Indian Act and the residential schools, but we're still here and we're still getting stronger. I'm sorry, but no one's trying to snuff you out. All right, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I'm going to say it now. Until you can show me the diary of the Prime Minister or Prime Ministers who were in charge of the residential schools or who were the prevailing leaders during the times of the residential schools, until you can show me their documents or some statements or something that is proof that they actually held racist beliefs and that the residential school was not a horrific and failed attempt at trying to unite communities together, then uh, people often try to say how racist and evil it was, and it was evil, it was horrific. But I I don't see the racist part of it. I don't. All right? Because I have yet to see a lot of evidence or evidence in general that supports that idea. And I'm sorry, but we are an evidence-based society. We use the Socratic method here, and I'm not going to just let screeching nonsense win out. And obviously, Twitter's full of it. Uh, Thankfully, for once, I have to say, I have seen more Twitter comments saying basically that, like, I've immigrated here to Canada. It's a wonderful place to be. That all this hashtag cancel Canada, because as you can see, it's hashtag cancel Canada Day. I have never been a Federalist, but to all those who yell cancel Canada Day, they can go get the F out of here and migrate to Seattle, New York, Chicago, Minneapolis, etc. For all I care. The leftards can F off also with them. So this person, I'm going to place this here for all the bruised ego white patriots. Oh, and cancel Canada Day. You realize that it's not about white patriotism. It's about Canadian nationalism, Canadian patriotism. The belief that Canada, as a society and as a nation, it's not perfect. No one's here arguing it's perfect or that we haven't made mistakes, but we have grown, we have attempted, we've had good intention, and really, that's a lot more than a lot of nations have. No nation has a clean history. No nation is perfect. No nation was free of indigenous communities before some sort of settling. As you can see, F off, cancel Canada Day. The hashtag pisses me off as it S's on all the men and women of all walks of life who have worked tirelessly to build this country throughout time. Is hashtag Canada perfect? No. Can things become better? Yes, but we do not bend to cancel culture. Perfect sentiment, honestly, right there. I'm going to leave this interaction of Twitter there at that sentiment because it's true. We're not perfect. We have tried, we will continue to try, and we will continue to try to be better, stronger, more compassionate and kind and understanding. But we are not a horrific monster under the bed. Now, we're just going to switch over quickly and talk about Terry Crews. Now, Terry Crews, for those of you who don't know, is an actor. He's best known at the moment for his work in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the cop comedy that's very, very popular. I'm a fan of it myself. It's actually very funny. So he had some comments as a black individual on the BLM movement, on the hashtag, on everything going on. And in my opinion, it was actually very wholesome. And the reason I'm including it is both because of the idea of cancel culture is going after him for his comments, but also because his comments were talking about attempting to be self-reflective and trying to ensure that superiority or the idea of being superior does not win out. So I thought we'd just look at what exactly he tweeted. So if you are a child of God, you are my brother and sister. I have family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure hashtag Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into hashtag Black Lives Better. Now, that statement, in my opinion, does not argue that the BLM hashtag is advocating for BLB, which would be Black Lives Better in this scenario, at least. They're not arguing for superiority. That's at least not what he's saying here. He's saying that we must always be self-reflective. If you are a follower of Christ, if you're a good individual, essentially, you're my brother or sister. We don't we don't want to bother each other. We just want to help each other and be as kind as possible. And that's what people should aspire to be. And that, in my opinion, is what he's saying. Aspire to be the best you can be. If you're a child of God, I have no animosity towards you. You leave me be, I leave you be. And we must ensure that we're being self-reflective. And people are just tearing him apart for it. Many activists push back against the statement, suggesting that it misunderstands or distorts the meaning or purpose behind the BLM movement. It doesn't distort anything. He is not advocating or saying that people are saying this. He's saying that you must be self-reflective. And again, I just thought it was a good thing to mention. I think it's very wholesome. I think it's correct in what he's saying, both morally and logically, that we must always ensure we are looking for equality among each other, a quality of opportunity, not a quality of outcome. My brothers and I, this is just the last little thing. My brothers and I have two brothers. All right. I'm permanently disabled with a physical disability. My brothers aren't. That's not a quality of outcome. But we grew up in the same house. We had the same opportunities. Things happen in life. Life veers off in different directions for people. People have different issues that they have to deal with, and they deal with them differently. We must strive for the equality of opportunity, that everybody has an equal chance to try to be the best they can be, to climb themselves up. You know, the idea of the American dream or the Western dream, that coming over to a democratic country, working hard in the capitalist society, and eventually making something of yourself either through hard work in a company or becoming an entrepreneur. And people are trying to vitiate and demonize that idea now. And I don't think that's right. I don't think Western culture itself has really been horrific. I don't think it's been perfect, and I think that we can continue to strive to be better. But I do think that we are the best form of what we can be so far, or at least what there has been. This is the best form so far. And yes, no one's saying it's perfect or couldn't be improved. But stop trying to demonize and vitiate and cancel because you don't like what you hear. That's not how life works, all right? We aren't going away. The voices will not stop. We will not allow you to burn all the books, to cancel everything you do not like. That is what the Nazis tried to do. These that activists, that little activist group was throwing out all these comparisons to Nazi Germany. Well, guess what? Stop trying to cancel everything because that's what they tried to do. And the voices did not allow them. The West stopped it. We will not allow our values to be trampled and thrown into the mud just because of historical injustices that have happened. The system currently tries to punish injustice. End of story. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Again, happy Canada Day. Anyone who doesn't like it, that's for you. Have a very nice day.